Hello, my name is C.J. Paris. Whoops. Welcome to Tapping Into His Treasures. I'm in my little dinette today because the lighting is much better in here. I really like to be on my couch, but some of the stations prefer a better lighting, so here I go. How are you? I still have a few little Christmassy things around. Our theme today is going to be the fourth man in the furnace. How did I come up with this theme? I wanted to do something else this week, and the Lord just keeps bringing it back to my mind. But interestingly, once I started thinking about it and praying about it, some really different and nifty thoughts came to my mind pertaining to it. So I just want to pass them on as I read the scriptures. We'll do more scriptures than usual today because I really want you to delve into it the way I did, really delve into it like I never had before. So let me just add this, well, first of all, the scripture just taken from Daniel chapter 3 verses, starting with verse 1. And this event with the three men in the furnace plus the fourth one happened 600 years before the birth of Christ, just to give you an idea, okay? And it starts off by saying that Nebuchadnezzar, who was the king at the time, and he was also a very arrogant ruler, he caused to be made an image of gold, a statue. Its height was 60 cubits or 90 feet, and its breadth 6 cubits or 9 feet. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. I have more specifics here pertaining to the height of the statue. It was 90 feet high. Wait a second. 90 feet high and 9 feet wide, or about 27 meters high and 2.7 meters wide. So I think it's good to get a picture of this, which I can't really give you an accurate one, but I'm guessing that it would be 90 feet would be almost a third of a football field. Does that sound right to you guys? I think a football field is like 330 something yards. But now we're talking feet. No, I'm back to feet. Well, you know better than I, that's for sure. Maybe it's high as a two-story house. Maybe a three-story house. But whatever, it was big. This statue was big, and it was to serve as a god for all the people from all around him. Then Nebuchadnezzar, the king, sent to gather together the satraps, the deputies, the governors, the judges and chief stargazers, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs and lawyers, and all the chief officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had caused to be set up. Then the satraps and the deputies and all those guys, I won't name them all again, were gathered together for the dedication, and they stood before the image that the king had set up. Then the herald cried aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, dulcimer, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall that very hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." Therefore, when all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, and all those instruments, they all fell down and worshipped the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Therefore, at that time, certain men of Chaldean descent came near and brought malicious accusations against the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of all those instruments shall fall down and worship the golden image, and that whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace." There are certain Jews whom you have appointed and set over the affairs of the province of Babylon. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, I'm sure all these three names are very familiar to most of you. They used to have different names, but when they went into the king's court, he changed their real names and gave them these heathen names. Their real names were symbolic of something spiritual or religious, but he changed them and gave them heathen names, but their hearts were still the same. They served the living God. So here they are telling on them, if you will, these men, O king. Now picture this, first of all. This humongous statue surrounded by probably thousands and thousands of people from all the provinces. And they're all at the sound, bowing down, probably raising their hands and shouting worship to this golden image, except three men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Picture this. They were deliberately disobedient to the king's order. I mean, they had to have some little guts to do that. So they were brought before the king. Then Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image which I have set up? Now if you are ready when you hear the sound of the harp, dulcimer, bagpipe, which I have made very good. But if you do not worship, you shall be cast at once into the midst of a burning fiery furnace. And who is that God who can deliver you out of my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, it is not necessary for us to answer you on this point." What he means by that is they don't have to ponder for an answer. They had it right on their tongues, right at the forefront of their minds. "If our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, let it be known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image which you have set up." Is that boldness or what? They were so focused on God that even the risk of having to go in that furnace and being killed did not stop them from keeping their eyes focused on God. Would you do that today if you were in that same circumstance? I hope to God I would, but we don't know. We don't know. We would not serve your gods. Then Nebuchadnezzar was full of fury, and his facial expression was changed to antagonism against these three men. Therefore he commanded that the furnace should be heated 7 times hotter than it was usually heated. Oh my gosh. I'm just going to tell you, it's here someplace. I know I have just a tiny little idea of what a fiery furnace looks like, because back in my day when I was first married, I had to shovel coal into a furnace that was downstairs in the basement of our house. And even as a kid, my father had to shovel coal in the furnace in our little furnace room in the basement of our house in the city. And the flames were quite high. And the furnaces were just small furnaces enough to heat just one house. So the furnace that we're talking about here was obviously much larger. And 7 times hotter, that is like not even imaginable. And he commanded the strongest men in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and to cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Then these 3 men were bound in their cloaks, their tunics or undergarments, their turbans, and their other clothing, and they were cast into the midst of the burning fiery furnace. I know there's a lot of repetition in the Old Testament, but that's okay. Follow me. Therefore, because the king's commandment was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame and sparks from the fire killed those men who handled Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Can you even imagine? And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the burning fiery furnace. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king saw and was astonished. And he jumped up and said to his counselors, Did we not cast 3 men bound into the midst of the fire? They answered, True, O king. He answered, Behold, I see 4 men loose, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt. And the form of the 4th is like a son of the gods. Let me say something before I go on any farther. There are so many commentaries pertaining to this verse alone, saying that Nebuchadnezzar wasn't a follower of God or anything like that. So this could not be factual, because he would never say anything like that. How would he know what a God would appear as? Blah, 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 da, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. But nevertheless, it's written in the Bible, God's Word, the Holy Bible. So yes, it has bearing, and that's all that we need to know. That's all that we need to know, not these commentaries that try to say that Christians are passing on false information all these years. Da-da-da-da. We don't want to hear it, because the moral of the story is that God is always the 4th man in the furnace, whether the language is acceptable to them or not. That is the moral of the story. So, Nebuchadnezzar sees 4 men in the furnace. The 4th is like a son of a god. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the mouth of the burning fiery furnace and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the midst of the fire. And the satraps, the deputies, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered around together and saw, I'm almost to the end, and saw, hold on, I skipped a page by mistake, and saw these men that the fire had no power upon their bodies, nor was the hair of their heads singed, neither were their garments scorched or changed in color or condition, nor had even the smell of smoke clung to them. Is that amazing or what? Then Nebuchadnezzar said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who believed in, trusted in, and relied on him. And they set aside the king's command and yielded their bodies rather than serve or worship any god except their own God. Therefore I make a decree that any people, nation, and language that speaks anything amiss against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut in pieces, and their houses be made a dunghill, for there is no other God who can deliver in this way. In the last verse, then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babylon. That was long. So, at the beginning of this reading, where he came across as an arrogant ruler, Nebuchadnezzar, I just wanted to point out that he could actually be symbolic of Satan in that portion of Scripture, symbolic of Satan in our lives even today. And the golden statue, the idol, certainly could be a symbol of idols in our lives today. And we know that we have them, don't we? Our cars, people are into themselves. How good do I look? How good do I look? The long strands of hair, the extensions, the makeup, the guys, the bodybuilders, which is all well and good in moderation. In moderation, wonderful. But sometimes it just takes over people's lives that they have no other life outside of all that stuff. So that's what I'm getting to. So, obviously the 4th man in the furnace was the angel of the Lord, Christ himself, walking amongst them. Now what we need to do is to approach this event not like a young school-age child gathered around a kindergarten teacher during story hour. We need to approach this event and others similar in the Bible as called out ones, called of God, so that God could reveal something to us through these events. Picture picture, if you will, what the furnace may have looked like. You really have to visualize this now in your minds. Picture a huge furnace. Picture the flames. Picture the intensity of the heat turned up 7 times. And imagine yourself on the sideline. I know you already read this about shoveling coal in the furnace. Imagine being on the sidelines and watching these 3 Hebrew boys being thrown into the furnace. Imagine watching, maybe one of those 3 Hebrew boys in your imagination is somebody that you knew, maybe your next door neighbor. That'll personalize it a little bit. So picture yourself watching them being thrown in. If you haven't passed out by that time, you're at least screaming or crying in terror, because that would be a terrible sight. Then imagine, if you can, your reaction when they are taken from the furnace and not a hair of their heads was singed. It would take you 2 weeks to come back to earth because you'd be floating on a cloud someplace. When we visualize Bible events, we are able to comprehend the faithfulness and the goodness of God and so much more. Would you agree? If you're just reading the story without visualizing it, you're just reading it and it's passing through your mind. But when you on purpose visualize it, you can personalize it more and God can get the message across better. We should do this on purpose and periodically internalize God's miracles in the same way. And think of all His miracles. You know, when He turned the water into wine. Imagine yourselves being 6 feet from Lazarus when he walked out of the grave, when God performed that miracle and raised him from the dead. And what about the little girl that Jesus raised from the dead? They all said she was asleep. Or they said she was dead and He said she was asleep, and He went, and sure enough, He raised her from the dead. If you were right there, put yourself right there. If He perhaps even picked her up and carried her outside to the parents, or if they were right in the room, put yourself right in the room or outside. And picture His other miracles when He healed people, that you were right there. You saw somebody blind and his sight was restored. Picture yourself. It would really affect you. By doing this, we can rejoice anew and refresh ourselves with His power and His love and His compassion for us. I had a very interesting devotional this morning. I was in Jeremiah 1, chapter 1, verse 17. And this is what it reads, how it reads. But you, Jeremiah, I'm getting a little hoarse. So what else is new, right? Wait, I have a little cough drop here. Excuse me. But you, Jeremiah, gird up your loins, arise and tell them all that I command you. Do not be dismayed and break down at the sight of their faces, lest I confound you before them and permit you to be overcome. Now this is God talking with Jeremiah, face to face, eyeball to eyeball. I'll read it again now that you know that it's God speaking with firmness. And it almost seems like a part of God that makes us shudder a little bit. But God is adding to Jeremiah's strength by being so firm with what He says to him. But you, Jeremiah, gird up your loins. And there's an exclamation point after the word loins. Gird up your loins. How else could He say that? Stand strong. Be strong. Pardon me. Arise. Tell them all that I command you. Now listen to this. Excuse me. Do not be dismayed and break down at the sight of their faces. I can identify with that because sometimes I get scared to do things when God tells me to do them. I don't like the way people look at me. It makes me nervous and brings in fear. So He's saying to Jeremiah, do not be dismayed and break down at the sight of their faces, lest, which means or else, lest I confound you before them, and listen to this last part, and permit you to be overcome. So when we are overcome, when we do let fear come in and we're afraid of the looks on people's faces toward us for speaking the truth. If we allow ourselves to be overcome, then God will give us over to the fear. That's what it says. I will permit you to be overcome. What else does that mean? That's what it means. If you fall into that fear, I'm going to permit you to be overcome, because in other words, you're not trusting God for the situation. You're not trusting Him to be your defense. I pray for myself here today too, as well as the rest of you, that we can do that for the cause of Christ, for the sake of Christ. Now, back to the furnace. Of course, that whole thing is the furnace and the heat is symbolic of a furnace of affliction in our emotions, in our situations, and in our lives. It applies to every single one of us. We all have our furnace of afflictions. Well, the fourth man in the furnace, the angel of the Lord, Jesus Christ Himself, He's the fourth man in our furnace too. And if we trust Him to be present with us in our circumstances, we, like the Hebrew boys, will come out unscathed. None of our hair will be singed, so to speak, when we're in our trial of affliction. Let me check my time before I go into the rest. So I hope you'll think about that during the week and ponder on those things. And we have a few more minutes, so I thought I would just share something else that God was putting on my heart this morning. And the question is, why do I and why do others share stories of the gospel of the Bible like this? Why do we share? Why do we try to get as much exposure as we can possibly get? Why do we consider it important? It goes all the way back to right after Christ's death and resurrection. Everybody became missionaries right off the bat. Paul, who was an incredible missionary, as was Mary, the mother of Jesus, and as was Peter, and so many more. And God was planting truth in the hearts of men through His missionaries. God was planting truth in the hearts of men. That's the reason behind it all. It's God. It's God. It's not the person or the persons. It's God who is doing the planting the truth in hearts, causing man to turn from idols in the immoral practices that went with it. The truth was so profound that news spread quickly. New liberty was found in the small groups in major cities and on islands. Yet Paul went to several islands and countries. When Paul entered a city, he made every effort to contact the brethren. Have you read that in the epistles? That was a real special time for him. What do you suppose? He built them up, and they built him up. And coming together with other disciples, there's nothing like it. Nothing like it. You know, in, what's today, Friday, Saturday? 3 nights will be New Year's Eve. I don't know when this is going to be aired, probably not till February, but anyway, 3 nights is New Year's Eve. And my whole church family is getting together at my pastor's and his wife's house, and we're going to celebrate. And there won't be any alcohol there. And you guys, some of you may call it a dry party, and blah. We have the best parties. It's so much better than a party with alcohol and dirty jokes and worldly music. We just have a blast. We can't even describe to you what a blast we have, because Christ is in our midst. And it goes so far beyond the following morning hangover. You can have that. No cerebro, we don't want to party that. So we will exchange from one to the other, and newness will come in the celebration. And it's just amazing when God's people get together. And Paul had that same experience when he got together with the brethren and the different places he visited. So we shouldn't be of the mind that that was Paul's calling and not ours. You know, it's so easy to look at the book, well, that's Paul, and that's this one, that's that one. And that's not us. We're living in the 21st century. Da-da-da-da. We are all called. We are all called to be missionaries and disciples, and to spread the truth, and to tell people about salvation. And we should have that same eagerness to contact the brethren, to spread God's word, pray for boldness, and to share the truth. We should have that and seek it. So please think about these things today, because they're very fresh. God just gave them to me today. So let me just pray with you for a minute, and for myself also, that God would give us the boldness. Father, we come before you by asking you specifically for fresh boldness to come into our lives, so that we may use our tongues, Lord, to go out and let you, through us, put truth in people's hearts. And of course, the message of salvation in Christ also. So we pray for that holy boldness now, as it even says in Ephesians 6:11-19, one of those verses, that you would put the boldness to spread the gospel of truth in us. So we're asking that you do that in all the viewers in all the different cities and towns today, and myself. In Jesus' name we ask this. Amen. So I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for all your support. God bless you, and God bless yours. God keep you, and God keep yours. Till next time, bye-bye for now.